Recent release of government secrets have suggested that the British government colluded or helped the Indian government during the Sikh genocide of 1984, often codenamed Operation Bluestar. Now this has shocked, dismayed and sickened many people like myself and the people who are watching, especially British Sikhs, who are loyal, born and bred in this country, and to receive this news has been a major shock. But before we all start shouting out, down, down Indian government and David Cameron, you're a murderer, it's really important that our next few steps are logical and rational, which is why we have to be logical, rational in our approach and the way we see these documents. We've always had anecdotal evidence that the SAS was somehow helping the Indian establishment practicing on a mock model of Harimandar Sahib in 1982, but this is actual proof and documentation that the SAS and the British establishment were somehow involved. But the question a lot of people are asking before we get into what these documents mean for us and how we're supposed to view them and the steps that we take forward, people have been asking how did the Sikhs get hold of these documents? In the UK, there's a law that is called the 30-year rule. That means that yearly cabinet papers are made public 30 years after they were created. So any correspondence the cabinet has had, 30 years later, those are made public. So anything that happened in 1984, for instance, which is what we're talking about now, would be made public in January 2014. When they are made public, they are taken from government department into the National Archives where anybody can sort of access these documents. This is how we've got hold of these documents. Now, people would ask us, why would the government create such havoc amongst the Sikh community? Why would they risk the wrath of the Sikh community knowing that they colluded with the Indian establishment, if in fact they did? Why would these documents be released? And there's a possible 4 options. The first one is this, that there was a major mess up somewhere. Somebody messed up big time. And they released these documents in the 30-year rule without even considering the magnitude that these would have for the Sikh community. The second is this, that the British government thought that the Sikhs neither have the intellect to find these documents in the National Archive, or they don't have the political clout or the know-how to know what to do once they found them. So they released them anyway. The third one, and this is very likely, is that the British government have nothing to hide. For them, a sovereign nation approached another sovereign nation and said, we need a bit of advice and guidance, so they gave it. And for them, this may be an indication that we have done nothing wrong, so they released these documents. So we've got 2, 3, 4 different reasons why these documents have been released. But the most important thing for us is they have been released, and that's done. We have to deal with these documents and move forward. But what's particularly important to remember is this. The UK is not like Russia that has a massive shredder and shreds all state government papers and gets rid of any evidence of any kind of action they're involved in the world. They're not like India, who violate their own laws and constitution. They're actually following their own law of a 30-year rule, and in fact, they seem quite open and honest. The disclaimer to this is, and this has massive ramifications for us, that in the 30-year rule, the British government will not release anything that may affect national security or international relations. So anything that affects national security or international relations, the British government will not release. It's important to remember that. So let's move on to these documents. These documents, the letter dated February the 6th, February the 23rd, and the exchange between Margaret Thatcher and Indira Gandhi post-Operation Bluestar, do they suggest a large-scale collusion from the British government with India? At the moment, it doesn't. Has this been successful in throwing light away from the real culprit, India, who architected and executed Operation Bluestar? At the moment, it has. We need to look at, does Operation Bluestar have all the hallmarks of an SAS operation? The SAS, the Special Air Service, they're not a secret service, they're a special task force. Their objective is to meet an objective with minimum collateral damage and minimum loss of life. When the SAS shot to fame was in 1980 in the Iranian siege in London, where some terrorists had taken some hostages. The SAS were used and they were thrust into the limelight, and you can see the video of the siege where they took just 17 minutes to rescue 24 out of 25 hostages, to kill 5 out of 6 terrorists and not lose a single man. So they're a clinical task force. The question we ask ourselves is, with Operation Bluestar, was it a surgical expert operation that didn't have any collateral damage? The answer to that is no. So if India have asked for SAS advice, expert advice, and they've gone over, can we imagine an SAS officer saying, right, what you need to do is destroy the holy temporal seat, Sri Akal Sahib, the Sikh parliament, you need to destroy that. You need to put 300 bullet holes in the Golden Temple. You need to black out the entire media. You need to entrap as many people as you can, but not let them leave. You need to attack on a day when people will be coming from every nook and cranny of the country. You need to use Vijayantara battle tanks. You need to use air-to-ground artillery in a place that is a non-military target and surrounded by civilian population. Is that what we think the SAS would have said to India? Clearly, Operation Bluestar suggests that India didn't listen to any advice that was given to the SAS. Even Brar, who has commented on these latest developments from the top secret documents, he himself has said that we didn't need SAS expertise and they didn't give it to us. He's very much proud of the fact that 5,000 innocent Sikhs were killed in Operation Bluestar, and he wants to take full credit for it. He says, we didn't take any SAS help. The only thing we did have was Kevlar bulletproof helmets from Israel. Maybe we had that kind of international help. Otherwise, we had none. Here, it is important as a small footnote to note this. General Brar has recently been in the UK and he's been telling everybody on radio interviews, on the BBC Asia network, and the media as a whole, that Operation Bluestar, I was following direct orders. All I was doing as a Lieutenant General, I was following orders. At the same time, this week, he has said that I can categorically say that the SAS and the British government did not help us in attacking Harimandar Sahib during Operation Bluestar. If you are a Lieutenant General who is only following orders, how do you know what is happening from cabinet to cabinet and government to government? This is the question we like to ask as a small footnote to Brar. So, based on this, what can the Sikhs, with these revelations, because we're not saying that Britain's totally exonerated in this, what we're saying is, what kind of things can we ask the UK government now? What legitimate questions or accusations can we make from the British government? The first request we can make from to the British government is full disclosure. Now, if you have nothing to hide, and if all your SAS operative had done was go from this country to that country and offer some advice and guidance, then honestly you have nothing to hide. But as we know, anything that we do in life, especially in our working life, whether you're a teacher or a nurse or a doctor or a taxi driver or a market trader, you have to have documented evidence. You have to have minutes. You have to have, even for the most small meetings, most insignificant meetings, we have minutes, we have documented evidence. Are we supposed to believe, if the British government tell us, that there is no report on what the SAS soldier told India to do? If he has been sent by this country to India to give them advice and guidance, surely he has documented the report and his findings. He would have taken a recce of Amritsar. He would have taken a recce of Harimandar Sahib. He would have made an analytical finding on Sant Bhindranwale's threat and the threat that other people posed. He would have looked at the complex. He would have looked at how heavily armed or how lightly or poorly armed are the Sikhs. He would have documented this and he would have put this in a report. On return to Britain, his commanding officer would have asked for that report, and Margaret Thatcher would have asked for that report. What we are saying is this: if these documents are suggesting that an SAS operative went to India and you have nothing to hide because he offered only advice and guidance, then please show us the report. We know it exists. Show us the report that published his findings. Did he ask the Indian government to lay siege to Harimandar Sahib with heavy artillery, or did he merely say, use espionage, use sabotage? If Bhindranwale is the man you want, poison him. Go on a rooftop. He's easily accessible. He does his speeches from the rooftop of the Langar Hall. Take him down with a sniper. Or did they say, look, we've been there. we don't want to get involved. If you tell us that you cannot offer the SAS report and the findings that he had, you clearly have something to hide. Clearly have something to hide. And the SAS is not a secret service, so you won't be compromising national security by releasing any secrets of the SAS. They're a specialist task force. There are SAS manuals out there, and there are people who know what their strategies are. So all we are calling for is a transparent disclosure. And the fact remains, not every SAS soldier is trained to take out life. They're not told to take out life, and they're not told to kill in combat. Some are operational, some deal in espionage, some deal in sabotage, and some do take life. What we are asking from you is, with these documents, is which one were you in 1984? So anyone trying to hide or suppress this report will ultimately be hiding the guilty. And then we turn to Britain, and at this early stage with these documents released, and we don't know how many more are going to be released, whether it's going to be a full disclosure, part disclosure, or no disclosure. But at this early stage, what kind of questions or accusations, again, can we ask the British government? And the first one is this: why would you even encourage the Indian establishment to attack Harimandar Sahib? Why would you even offer advice and guidance for them to do such a heinous act? Regardless of what they think their objective is, why would you take part in something like that, even if it was just to cross the shores and offer a bit of advice? Why would you encourage such an act? Secondly, as a diplomatic, democratic country and one of the leading nations of the world, why would you not encourage India, in your correspondence, to deal with the demands, the legitimate demands of a normal, officially elected head of a Sikh seminary who's asking for constitutional reform, greater human and civil rights? Why wouldn't you encourage the Indian establishment to sit down with him in a diplomatic and democratic way? Why wouldn't you do that? Take Scotland, for example, and their request for a referendum on independence. The British government haven't, as far as I know, sent an SAS soldier to see whether the Scottish people should be attacked for this request. So we have a very legitimate question to ask the British government: why would you even take part and entertain such a request? Thirdly, you have consistently and constantly told us for the past 30 years, when we've pounded the streets of London asking for justice for the atrocities committed during Operation Bluestar, that this is an internal matter for India to deal with. The question we want to ask you now is, was it not an internal matter in 1984 when they requested your help? If you could get involved in then and offer them advice and guidance, why can't you help the Sikhs when we're asking for justice? Another aspect that we have to look at is, was Britain actually fully complicit, and did they fully collude with the Indian government in the genocide of the Sikhs in 1984 and beyond? Let's look at some points. The first one is this: the relationship between Margaret Thatcher and Indira Gandhi. Margaret Thatcher and Indira Gandhi were two leading stateswomen in a world dominated by male politics, so they found comfort in each other. And diaries suggest that Indira Gandhi was one of the only women that Margaret Thatcher was awed by. She loved her strength, she loved the way she dealt with political dissidents, she loved the way she ruled in a totalitarian way, she loved the way she quelled the working class. And what she loved more than anything was that Indira Gandhi was seen as the Durga and the saviour of Mother India. She was Mother India, and Margaret Thatcher was the Iron Lady. So they had many comparisons, they had much correspondence. So could Margaret Thatcher, as a favour to Indira Gandhi, have thought that Sikhs are a minority across the world? What would I lose if I send some military personnel to help quash Sikh aspirations, Sikh demands, and ultimately kill Sikhs for my good friend Indira Gandhi? So we have to look at this relationship, and if you go on and you can do many searches on the internet of how Indira Gandhi and Margaret Thatcher often sat with each other, and Margaret Thatcher commended Indira Gandhi in 1982 at the time where Sikhs were being stopped to go to the Asian Games. They were being frisked, they were having their turbans taken off, they were being harassed, embarrassed, some were being beaten. This was after in 1978 13 Sikhs were killed innocently by the police and not a single investigation took place. This is after a human rights report in 1982 said that Indian police officers routinely arrest Sikhs and molest Sikh women in 1982. And in 1982, Margaret Thatcher made this comment that Indira Gandhi is an esteemed leader of a major democratic nation. So we can see that there's a relationship there, and in this relationship, was Margaret Thatcher willing to sacrifice 5,000 Sikhs in 1984 to better her relationship with India, an up-and-coming trading nation? Secondly, recently Tom Watson asked the Prime Minister during Prime Minister's question time that did Operation Bluestar and the help that Margaret Thatcher and the British government gave to India, did that have anything to do with the £65 million helicopters, Westland helicopters, that India purchased after Operation Bluestar? So again, is this an indication that Britain would have been fully complicit and fully colluded in the genocide of the Sikhs to sell £65 million worth of helicopters? That's something to think about. Thirdly, what also may suggest full complicity, British complicity during Operation Bluestar, is the previous roles that British intelligence have played in other countries, even to this day. Margaret Thatcher fully colluded with this reports that suggest she fully colluded with Pol Pot, fully colluded with Milosevic. They were active in Africa, Sierra Leone. We see now with Syria, Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, the lies that they've propelled, that they were weapons of mass destruction. If we are often as Sikhs naive into thinking that people can't be that evil because we see people as ourselves, we think they should be open, honest. But we don't realize, government to government, trading nation to trading nation, what kind of things are happening and how countries themselves are operating outside of conventional law. So the fact that the British have been involved in many major other incidents and sinister scenarios across the world, does that suggest that they wouldn't do the same in India and the Sikhs in Punjab? Fourthly, what also may suggest British complicity in Operation Bluestar, full complicity, is the fact that we've been going to London every year for the past 30 years and not a single investigation or inquiry has resulted in this. Is this because the British government themselves know how much of a dirty hand they played during Operation Bluestar? Also, somebody like Balkar Singh can die in the year 2008. Somebody like Darshan Singh can be killed by a Punjab police bullet, a 65-year-old man, during a peaceful protest. Somebody like Jaspal Singh can be killed, an 18-year-old engineering student, by a police officer's bullet, and not a single investigation take place. Somebody like Professor Buller could be executed in India without a shred of evidence. Somebody like Balwant Singh Rajwana could be executed after serving a life sentence. Why does this never make the media? Why are we always constantly crying that the British media aren't reporting about the atrocities in India? Is it because they know that from 1984 onwards, they have helped the Indian establishment cut Sikhs at the knees? Is that the reason why? If somebody breaks wind in Syria, Libya, Afghanistan or Iraq, it makes the national media. These are war-torn countries. We have innocent Sikhs dying and they're not being reported. The question is, why? Is it because you have been heavily involved in the Sikh genocide? In saying this, are we taking away the limelight from the real killer? Because a gun and a bomb is nothing unless somebody is pulling the trigger or detonating the bomb. Now, India have used armaments from many different foreign countries. They've used Kevlar bulletproof helmets from Israel. They used howitzer guns from Russia. They used Buffalo air rifles from Sweden. They have a whole host of armaments, Mirage aircraft from France. Do we blame the countries that are selling these armaments to India in a legal way, or do we blame the country that's using these armaments against their civilian population? This is something that we have to remember, because it seems that with these documents are throwing away the light from the real culprit, the real killer and the real murderer, is that it doesn't matter whether they bought armaments from any which country. It doesn't matter. It's the person who's using this that is at fault. This is the person who has to be tried. This is the person who has to answer our questions. By the same token, if a Westland helicopter, £65 million Westland helicopter deal resulted in SAS collusion and British collusion on the attack on Harimandar Sahib, does that mean then, if Russian howitzer guns were used, does that mean the KGB were involved in the attack on Harimandar Sahib? If Kevlar bulletproof helmets were used from Israel, does that mean Mossad was involved in attacking Harimandar Sahib? If armaments from Germany were used, does that mean the Federal Intelligence Service of Germany was also complicit? Does that mean Delta Force from America was also complicit? Is there a massive array, network, and collusion of countries that came together in 1984 to strike a blow at the heart of the Sikh community? How many countries, how many intelligence services, how much artillery was needed for one man asking for civil and human rights and 150 other men who were starving, outnumbered, poorly armed, without electricity and water? Something to think about. And I mention Sant Bhindranwale because whether these documents show complicity or they don't show any complicity, whether they show some unwitting help or unwitting help, whether they release an even bigger can of worms or it puts a lid on the can of worms, what these documents suggest for me on a personal level and a lot of people out there is this: that regardless of whether we find out whether the British helped India in a substantial way or in an advice and guidance way, what these documents do unequivocally prove is this: the exoneration of Sant Bhindranwale. For many decades, this lie has been peddled that Operation Bluestar was all about one man and we had to get him out. And it was a last-minute decision, a last-ditched attempt to restore law and order in Punjab that was spiraling out of control because of this one terrorist. Even Brar and all these other people are saying, while it was a last-ditch attempt, I had to catch a flight in that same week. I had to go straight to Chandigarh. I was debriefed and I was ready to roll. And it was all a last-minute decision. Well, this correspondence comes from February 1984. That doesn't suggest that this was any last-minute decision to attack Harimandar Sahib. This suggests that it was a calculated, premeditated, pre-planned genocide of their own civilians. These documents completely exonerate Sant Bhindranwale, and it's a chance and an opportunity. We all have friends and family who say, yes, we agree that 150,000 Sikhs dying in the last 30 years is no good thing, but it's all down to one man. This now is a game changer. This is a complete game changer. This is a time to tell your friends and your family and all those people who are mentally conditioned to blaming themselves for their own genocide and blaming Sant Bhindranwale for our genocide, that this blows that information out of the water completely. At the same time, and building on this notion, the reason why we're asking for a full disclosure is we can backdate a chronology of events. When was the first time Indira Gandhi contacted Margaret Thatcher and asked for any kind of assistance or let her know that there were political dissidents in Punjab asking for certain rights? Was this 3 years ago? Was this in 1981? Was it in 1982? Was it in 1983? Because there is anecdotal evidence that the SAS were present in the Dehradun valleys in 1982, practicing on a mock model of Harimandar Sahib. If this is true, this is why we're asking for full disclosure, then we are uncovering a very deep-seated conspiracy, because Sant Jarnail Singh was nowhere near even Nanak Niwas or Sri Akal Takht Sahib as his residence, nowhere near in 1982. If this is the case, then it clearly suggests the Indian government wanting to give the Sikhs an unforgettable, bloody, bone-breaking punch on the nose that would then propel them into defending themselves, where then draconian laws can be put in place to suppress them even more. This is why we ask for a full disclosure, and we ask, when was the first call made, when was the first correspondence made, and what happened thereafter? What we have probably learned from this video is that this is a very complex case, and with the release of these documents, they've thrown more questions than they have answers, and we're probably at the closer of the beginning of this investigation than we are at the end. But to move forward a bit, as you can see, the importance of a full disclosure, how important it is, let's just move forward a bit to see what kind of steps can we take, because we've been attending some youth meetings and some suggestions have been thrown out, and let's just share them with you. One of the suggestions is, do we have civil unrest in London? Do we have civil unrest from the Sikhs in Britain. It's possible. But at the same time, would we be playing in the hands of the Indian establishment by severing our ties with this government? That's something to think about. Secondly, some people have been suggesting that we disengage with British politics and we boycott the Tory party. On the other hand, do we engage more in politics? Do we enthuse the next generation to engage in politics so we can influence change and we can get results? Again, that is something to think about. Thirdly, and this has been bandied about not just by the youth in meetings, this has been bandied about by absolutely everybody. But as Sikhs, we often use nice little terminology, but we never think about what it means. We have been asking for an international independent inquiry into British involvement. That sounds nice. Let's think about what that means. We are essentially, firstly, let's ask ourselves, who are these independent international people? Are they the heads of states? Are they the prime ministers? Are they the presidents? Who are they? Secondly, are we really led to believe that Obama, Putin, people who have their own secret service, people who have their own covert operations, who operate outside the law, outside conventional law, and do things, they exist but they don't exist, they have their own files, they have their own classified files that they would never show anybody. Are we led to believe that we can impress Obama and Putin and other world leaders to come to David Cameron, knock on the door and ask him to open the vault and show us all your deep dark secrets because the Sikhs have asked us to? Is this a plausible, logical, rational request? It's not. So we have to go for smart targets. We have to go for something that's achievable in the here and now. And that isn't for an investigation by the Tory party. We have to impress on people, and you use your Facebook and you use your Twitter, you use your MPs to say we want a cross-party backbench independent inquiry into how many of the documents there are, how many of the documents exist. Because if there's one thing that Sikhs deserve in this country, there are answers. We have been told by people that don't sever your relationship with the British. We have a special relationship with Britain. Sikhs and Britain, we go hand in glove. And we shouldn't sour that relationship. We shouldn't let India let us destroy that relationship. But you also have to ask yourself, what relationship are we talking about? We had a perfectly amazing, functional, cosmopolitan Raj that nobody had ever seen before. That's Maharaja Ranjit Singh's empire. The British landed on the shores and took that away from us. Despite the fact that they took that away from us, in 1897, when Sikhs were fighting for the British Empire, they were stationed in Afghanistan. We all know to this day, Russia, America, the UK, they've not been able to conquer Afghanistan. In 1897, at the Battle of Saragari, 21 Sikh soldiers were at a post that was converged on by 10,000 Afghan soldiers. Other British soldiers ran away, but the Sikh soldiers stood, all 21 of them. And in the face of grave adversary, each man coined the phrase that the British use today, last man, last round. Not a single Sikh soldier left his post. The Afghan tribes admitted later on that they lost 1,400 men and countless were injured by 21 Sikhs who held that post. When news broke of this amazing feat of courage and bravery in the face of adversity, parliamentary proceedings were interrupted for the very first time, and every single MP stood up and gave a standing ovation to the Sikhs. They narrated this tale of bravery and put it at the feet of Queen Victoria and said, here, this is what the brave Sikhs have done for this country. For the first time ever, one military unit received the highest award for gallantry in one single action. Never before in the annals of world history has this ever happened. This is what the Sikhs have done for this empire. Roll on to the First World War. 130,000 Sikh soldiers across 3 different continents, and they fought from the Somme to Ypres to Gallipoli to the most depraved parts of the First World War. They went and they fought for the British again. And what happened when the returning soldiers came back to Punjab? Because many of these Sikh soldiers left their villages like our granddads in Punjab, and they had never seen London, nor would they ever see London in their life, but they fought for the British Empire. They came back, and how did the British Empire thank these brave Sikh soldiers? They introduced something called the Rowlatt Act of 1919. What that effectively meant was they could arrest anyone at any time, anywhere, and even execute them if they thought that they were a threat to the British Empire. And it was the Sikhs who were affected most because they were the most vocal against injustice. So returning Sikhs who expected greater autonomy in Punjab and India, instead they had the noose tightened around their neck by the British. What did the Sikhs do in response to the Rowley attacks? They peacefully protested. And what was the end result of that protest? Jallianwala Bagh. 353 Indians, mainly Sikhs and Punjabis, were shot in cold blood by the same British forces that they had just come back and fought for. This is the special relationship. Come to the Second World War. The British come knocking again, and the Sikhs answer their call in droves, and they enter the war, and they shape Europe to what we see today. They battled against the Nazis. The Sikhs won 14 Victoria Crosses. Per capita, that's more than anybody else in the world based on our population. This is our contribution. Over the two great wars, Sikhs lost 83,000 lives for this empire, and over 100,000 were permanently injured, to the point where Winston Churchill actually had to say that we are indebted to the Sikhs for their contribution to the British way of life. We've asked for their help twice this century, and they've answered. They've defended our integrity and our honour. But what happened after the Second World War? British decide that we want to leave India. We want to give the keys back to the Indian National. We want to give the keys to the Indian National Congress. We want to say thanks, Sikhs. Thanks for everything. See you later. And what do? They help India divide Punjab, the east and the west. So they allow Sikhs to get massacred on both sides of that border. This is how we were repaid. At the same time, we arrive at the shores of Britain and become a backbone of the British economy. We are a self-sustaining people. We are not a burden on the system. We are a great example of cultural integration. Tory MPs, ironically, recently have said that Sikhs are the best example of cultural integration. Then these revelations rock our very being and our place in this world. So what special relationship do we have with Britain? At the same time, we also have to remember Britain in 1981 said Sikhs are a separate race, and we aren't even recognized as Sikhs in India. They have given us special provisions for the kirpan. They have given us special provisions for the turban. They've allowed us to feel like we're British. Do we sever that relationship? What these documents have done, however, is make me feel, and probably most Sikhs out there feel, like refugees. We feel completely alone in this world. We don't have a friend. And what galls us even more is that the two countries that we fought tooth and nail for for over a century have colluded against us and cut us at the knees. So we are alone. And this is where Sant Bhindranwale's words reverberate around the world, especially for Sikhs, with any type of honour. That until every man, woman and child feels like they are slaves, they will never break those shackles of slavery. They will never break free. So we are a nationless people. And how do you feel that we don't have any allies, and we don't have any networks, and we don't have a country of our own? So the penny is finally dropped, so to speak. We realize why all our cries have fallen on deaf ears, and we realize why there are no investigations, why there are no inquiries, why there are no answers for us, why there is no justice for the dead. It's because we're refugees. And it's time to change tact, time to change mindset. For 30 years, we've been effectively jogging on the spot. We've been using our energies, we've been moving, but we've been moving nowhere. We've been jogging on the spot. We have been essentially asking one government, who clearly doesn't care that much about us, to go and approach another government, who cares even less about us, to go and give justice to the genocide that they have committed and covered up. The definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for a different result. It's time to change tact. One of the positives that have come out of these revelations is that how do you pacify a community? How do you make them content? You make them rich. We, born in this country, we've entered that rat race of degrees, jobs and houses and cars. But with these documents suddenly coming out of nowhere, this has shown that Sikhs, even born and bred in this country, even those who aren't born and bred in this country, who live a Western comfortable life, still have the blood of Guru Gobind Singh running through their veins. They still are demanding answers. They still are are willing to struggle for justice and the truth. At the same time, this isn't the time to yell murder. Although we will be reasonable, we have to be expert with a relentless agenda. Sikhs will be moving in political spheres now that the world has never seen before, and the world has to be ready for that. And finally, one of the most significant aspects of the revelation of these documents, whether more are revealed or disclosed or not, is that India cannot hold on or cling on to its lies anymore. The lies they've been peddling about Operation Bluestar and the Sikh insurgency in its aftermath, the lies they've been peddling for the past 30 years have come to an end. One of the things that have been mentioned throughout this video is that Sikhs demand answers. If there's one thing that we deserve, it's answers. 150,000 Sikhs have perished in India. 150,000 of our people have been killed in India. By not giving answers, by not giving the facts, you're killing them again. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.